Morning, everyone. I'd like to call to order the Montgomery County Planning Commission monthly board meeting for March 12th, 2025. Records show that we have a quorum of 6 board members. And I believe Jonathan is excused and we are waiting on Obed. But we will continue on with our agenda at this point. Are there any board comments before we get started?
I just wanted to thank you. Karina, was I didn't I recognize earlier that we have the contact information on all our speakers now on each?
Yes,
And
on the events list.
I think that's really nice that we have that. So it's easy now that people are getting, well, this century, people are getting really used to using their computers more. And if you find something that's interesting, you can click on or you can go back to it. So it's all that kind of more seamless connection. So thank you.
Yeah, the board comment. Seeing none, is there a motion to approve the Montgomery County Planning Commission monthly meeting minutes for February 12th, 2025? Second. Moved and second. Are any comments or questions from board members? Comments or questions from anybody, audience, staff, anybody online? Seeing none, is there any negative vote for the approval of the meeting minutes? Move on to our next agenda item, which is public comment. Is there any public comment on? Is there any public comment for those in the room or online before we get started with our agenda? Anybody there, Karina?
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll move on to our first agenda item, which is Food Policy Council. And
Speaker's not here yet.
he's not? Okay, that's fine. Yeah, and we will skip that.
He texted me today, he would be here right around now. Got a little kid that needed to go to daycare first thing.
That's fine.
Darn kids.
Is that Steve?
Steve came up with me in the steps, but he thought he was coming a little later. So he's here. He's here.
I'm gonna go grab.
Yeah.
Your whole section's got to the first.
Let's smoke them if you got them.
You can always talk about.
Is that not?
The traffic around.
I'm not sure people know what it means. Yeah. Wow.
People in this room do, but. If you got them, does that land the same? I don't know.
Oh, he's got Matt smiling at us. Oh, hi, Matt.
Hi. I used that phrase last night, so sure, Steve. it's gonna work.
Sorry for the long meeting.
Oh, it's fine. How do you think the Phillies are gonna do this year, guys? Spring training.
Badly, because I bought the little partial season ticket.
You ruined it.
Well, if you want to get
Right,
rid
so-
of your 4th of May, there's going to be, Agritourism is giving a giveaway.
Okay.
A hamburger jacket for women with the Phillies.
It's her birthday, and that's a lot of birthday. Let's go.
Let's go.
So more importantly, if anybody needs
Put it in the
firewood,
board presentation.
I got a bunch done love too.
Yeah.
I got it.
Yes, it
I
was.
got so much firewood.
It is.
Talk to my tree
It's
guy.
like therapeutic to go out and like.
Did everybody have
One
one
on top.
This is what wood, but now I got like
Yeah.
cords of wood, plus I have a quarterly that I still have. No tree.
All right.
We'll eventually.
Let's go through the.
Wait, we're talking about firewood.
Change the agenda on
Yeah,
you.
change the agenda. So if anybody needs firewood,
You come to Dulce.
First, or you get rid of yours first.
no.
Ladies first, I mean.
You bring it one piece at a time to the meetings.
I'll bring in my backpack.
Gifts, hostess gifts. That's what we
One for everyone.
So Food Policy Council.
Food Policy Council.
Call on Ann. Steve, you got a little more time now.
He just came.
Sorry
about that, Steve.
We just wanted to see if you were on the ball.
You are.
So,
Okay.
and I guess John is not joining us?
Dawn could not make it today. Sorry, but I'm here.
Mark the record that John did not make it.
Yes, it will be really clear.
And we welcome Sam Applefield.
Yeah, so Sam has been on board as the county's Food Policy Council coordinator for the last year or so.
Year and a half, yeah.
Year and a half, gosh. Really has a very interdisciplinary role here at the county. He works a lot with a leadership team of individuals that helps, I guess, get the Food Policy Council up and running, but we'll tell you more about that. John and I are both on that leadership team. And yeah. Thanks, Sam, for joining us today. That's your clicker.
Go to the podium. Okay. All right, thanks, Anne. Thanks everyone for having me this morning. Excited to be here and to share a little bit more about the work of the Montgomery County Food Policy Council. So as Anne mentioned, my name's Sam Applefield, and
Did you change your name when you got your position, or did you have it prior to?
you know, it's funny, I was at ribbon cutting yesterday with the commissioners were all there, and Commissioner McKeeja was like, you know, Sam's really well qualified for this role, and not just because of his name. We say he beat out Lily Lemon Meadow for the role. It was, his delivery was better than mine, but
I love that political humor.
yeah, exactly. All right, so I'll start just with some background on kind of how we got here to getting this Food Policy Council set up. Talk about some of the ongoing county programming, Eat Local Monco report, and then ARPA, which are kind of the main stages that helped get the council established. So there has been for many years a variety of kind of programming through, you know, across different county departments and offices that impacts the local food system here. So, you know, within the Planning Commission here, there's the Farmland Preservation Program, obviously. Commerce Department has a variety of workforce development, business development programs, you know, where they work with farmers and food business owners. And then, you know, across a variety of health and human services offices, there's more of the food security, food access, nutrition education, a lot of that type of programming. And that's my role is housed within the Office of Public Health in HHS there. So, you know, for many years, these programs have all kind of been ongoing, and there hasn't been kind of a natural way for them to be able to come together to kind of coordinate and establish more of a vision, right, for what we want to see happening in the local food system. So I think, you know, the pandemic helped kind of shine a light on that, but that's part of the goal of the council, is helping to bring all those roles together. So that's kind of the background. Then in I think it was 2016, 2017, I think it was actually the Planning Commission that worked with the Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission to establish this Eat Local Monco report. And, you know, it's focused on promoting local food, really kind of more of a economic development kind of focus. But one of the recommendations that came out of this report, which, you know, was published, it says there, March 2018, was establishing a county food policy council. So, you know, I think that at that time, after this report came out, Anne and a few others, you know, put some time and effort into trying to establish this council. But you know, it's like difficult to do in addition to everything else that was going on. And yeah, really, you know, just kind of there wasn't the bandwidth and the capacity to get it up and running off the ground. Then when the county received ARPA funds, you know, pandemic kind of recovery funds, there was that created an opportunity to invest resources to, you know, to create the council. So there were, you know, throughout the county's kind of requests for proposals for those ARPA funds, 21 projects were submitted that related to kind of the local food system, totaling just about $75 million. 8 of those were approved, and one of them was just over $1 million for creating the Food Policy Council. So that's kind of the background again of kind of how we got to Well, I'll say that's how we got to where we were about 1 year ago. And then I have the last kind of background slide here. So in March of 24, the commissioners, by resolution, formally created the Food Policy Council. Immediately after that, we opened a process for members of the public to join our leadership team. So it took, a few months to review those applications, conduct interviews, have a slate of candidates to recommend, and then, those were then approved by the commissioners in July. So we had our first leadership team meeting in August of last year. So for the last 6 months or so, we've been meeting, and I'll talk more in a little bit about what we've been doing for the last 6 months. Yeah, so that's kind of, again, that's the background, how we got to where we are. I want to give just a brief overview of, I mentioned this term kind of food system a couple of times, so just some clarity about what that encompasses and some brief kind of background data on that. So, when we talk about the food system, it's really everything from food production, distribution, processing, retail, managing any food waste, things, about food access, food security, really anyone who's touching kind of food in any way. That's how kind of trying to set up the council to be inclusive of all those different perspectives. So, in the county, we have about 565 farms on just over 30,000 acres. Over 4,000 different food facilities, whether that's, as it says, restaurants, things like grocery stores, food trucks. These numbers on the bottom are actually a little bit outdated. There's closer to 100 pantries, more like 15 or so farmers markets, and the amount, I guess it's covered up a little bit there, but that's people experiencing food insecurity. That has increased. It's closer to 8%, or about 75,000 people now. So just some data that's helpful to share. And I think at this point, I'm going to talk a little bit about kind of the overall goals and objectives for the council. I'll talk a little bit about kind of how it's structured and how it's set up. And then, like I mentioned, kind of an update on what we've been doing for the last 6 months. So the overall kind of objective or mission of the council is really to create a more equitable and sustainable food system within Montgomery County. So the 3 ways that the council can help to achieve that. The first is the increasing of county services and resources. So that's that slide with all the different kind of county departments that are involved here. The second is improving communication among food system stakeholders. So that's a lot of what I've been doing in my role so far is just talking to people and figuring out kind of what they need, and then being like, oh, yeah, this farmer, you're looking for kind of outlets to donate some extra produce you have. Here's a pantry that's right down the road. Or this, school district that just had a partner unable to continue to provide this school backpack program. Like, here are a few places you might be able to connect with that could fill that gap for you. So improving those kind of connections, and then working to identify what some of our collective goals are, and then figure out plans for how we can achieve them. So yeah, that's kind of the big picture. In terms of how the council is structured, I mentioned the leadership team. So we have 5 different county employees on that leadership team, and as you mentioned, John are both part of that. There's also someone from the Commerce Department, and then 2 other people from HHS. And then, like I mentioned, we had an application process we have 7 other seats on the leadership team, so a total of 12. A few of them are kind of sector specific. So we had 1 seat for a farmer, 1 for food security, and 1 community representative. And then the other 4 are just kind of at-large open seats. So yeah, we have a really great group, with those kind of diverse backgrounds and perspectives, and it's been a really good group to work with. The kind of role for the leadership team is providing the strategic guidance and direction for kind of the development of the council, really just kind of setting our agenda, setting our priorities, determining what the council is going to focus on. The working groups we don't have in place yet, but the idea for the working groups here is that you know, when we decide what the particular issues we want to focus on are, let's say we want to figure out, you know, how we can really support farmers in Montgomery County, then we want to be able to bring more farmers, Penn State Extension, PASA Sustainable Agriculture, you know, those other kind of relevant stakeholders to the table, and really, I'll stick with this pun, get into the weeds of, you know, like how to support farmers, right? Or whatever our issue area, our goal area is. And then we also have general membership meetings. So that the idea here is if you're not on the leadership team and maybe the working group topic isn't something that is relevant to you, but you still want to stay connected and involved, and maybe you have information you want to share with others in the council, or you just want to learn more about what's going on, that's general membership is kind of a place where you can, as it says, for information and resource sharing. So
How often does the leadership team meet?
leadership team meets monthly.
And how many have you had general member meetings?
Yeah, so we've had, let's see, is this the next slide? Yeah, perfect. This is a picture from our first general membership meeting, which we had in mid-January. We are planning on those being quarterly at this point. So right now we're just starting to think through our spring one, you know, probably sometime in late April or May. Yeah, our first general membership meeting, we had about 30 people in person and 35 online. So it was a pretty good turnout, and people just seemed really excited to be kind of have a place to come together, and again, kind of just a lot of that kind of networking and relationship building that was happening there. So yeah, we got good feedback from that meeting as well. So a couple of the other kind of accomplishments to date or what we've been up to so far, basically, with the leadership team. Through those monthly meetings, you know, we really started with trying to build kind of a foundation. So establishing our bylaws, our community agreements, setting up an executive committee, just kind of figuring out how we're working together. We started a newsletter that's part of, you know, for general members, that kind of information and resource sharing. Also have been getting a lot of good feedback on that newsletter. Like I said, hosted the first general membership meeting and published a report on food insecurity. So those are some of the bigger items. A few other projects that are kind of underway. One is coordination of farmers market managers. As I mentioned, there's about 15 or 16 markets in the county. They all kind of just like operate independently. So we're having next week, actually a week from today, a meeting with all the different market managers, just to, you know, kind of, again, share information, kind of troubleshoot together. Also, there's a program, the Farmers Market Nutrition Program, where it's either seniors or people on WIC are able to get coupons to spend at the market. So like making sure all market managers know about that program and how you can sign up, and trying to, you know, increase redemption of that. So excited for that meeting coming up. Recently held a meeting, similar kind of thing, for community gardens throughout the county. You know, this is from going out and kind of meeting with them individually. It was just hearing a lot of them say, like, it'd be really great to meet other gardeners and just learn, like, how are you guys doing this, or how does this, you know, kind of show up in your garden. So we had a great call last week or 2 weeks ago. Everyone was excited to then go and tour each other's gardens. So we're setting up some of those visits for later this spring. Yeah, two other things to mention here. Been talking with Anne and Stephen a lot recently about kind of how to activate some of the preserved farmland. You know, as you all know, there are about 10,000, over 10,000 acres in preserved farmland in the county. You know, some of which is actively utilized and farmed, but not all of it is. And access to farmland is routinely cited as kind of the biggest barrier that new and beginning farmers face. So we've been trying to figure out if there's a way to kind of identify, build a pool of farmers who are looking for land, would be interested in farming in Montgomery County. And if we can connect them with some of these landowners who have land that has to be used for farming, as is preserved in that way, and again building this relationship. So we're just kind of getting that started soon too. The last thing I wanted to mention is this Montco Ag Venture project, which a number of other kind of neighboring counties have different versions of this, but this is kind of inspired by some of those models and by the Montgomery County Trail Challenge, which if you're not familiar is kind of a challenge, an activity to get people to go out and use the parks and use the trail system. So similar idea here, but getting people to go out and visit local farms, set up this kind of bingo card to make it like a fun way to try and check off a bunch of the boxes. So Stephen will talk a little bit more about that, I think, in his presentation, and how we're kind of tying that into the farm to families map that that he had created recently. Let's see, I think then just to give you a sense of where we're going next, what other things we have coming up with the council. As I mentioned earlier, there are about $1 million that were allocated to of ARPA funds allocated to Food Policy Council. One of the main things we're planning to do with those funds is issue an RFP or start a grant program, kind of set up widely to support any projects that would advance a more equitable, a more sustainable food system in the county. So we are kind of working through the details of that now, but planning to put that out this summer. We are working.
What would be the purpose of the grant program? What's the initial thoughts on that?
Yeah. So again, broadly kind of advancing a more equitable, more sustainable food system in the county. I think, in a little bit more detail, thinking about, because there are one-time funds, probably prioritizing like infrastructure, things like that, as opposed to like programming, but also focusing on kind of like collaborative projects. Again, that's, I think, probably the theme, right, of the the role of the council, helping to make those kind of connections. So, wanting to set it up to be open for food banks and food pantries, or farmers, or composting businesses, or schools that want to do school gardens, right? Like there's that kind of range of entities that could be applying. So then identifying some like a priority project, as I mentioned, that's kind of one of our third goal, our third objective there is like one of these types of projects that really can benefit a wide range of folks, or it's difficult for kind of one entity to lead on their own. So that's, through our leadership team, we're actually, we have a retreat coming up in early April to try and identify, like what is that project that we want to lead with this year. And then, as I mentioned, establishing working groups is something we're figuring out as well. We are going to have one that, based on feedback from our first general membership meeting, that we're calling network development. So, kind of doing some stakeholder analysis, right? Identifying who do we already have kind of in our network that's starting to participate? Where are there gaps? How could we do outreach to bring some of those other folks in? And there was also a suggestion to create kind of like an online database, right? So that all the information of who's participating can be shared publicly. So that's kind of where we're going, what we're looking to do kind of throughout the spring and summer. I think that might be all that I have. Other, just kind of how to get involved. Can certainly sign up for our newsletter. I can share that around afterwards if you're interested. Just that's a good way to just kind of see what's happening in the food system. Our quarterly general membership meetings, and then this is my contact information, and happy to talk about any ideas or answer any questions. So, yeah, that's all that I have. Thanks for your time.
Any questions for Cindy?
Sam, you said that you were allotted $1 million to start this. It is all the ARPA money, do we have it? Do we have it, or is it still someplace where hasn't been brought down from the federal government?
Right, yeah, we have it.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's good.
That's
good.
reassuring.
Thanks, that is reassuring. But the other question, but I know that in my former life, I think in 2008 or so, as Montgomery County Lands Trust, we did a booklet, which is probably someplace in the library of this organization. But we went to all the farmers markets. We found out where all the farmers are, any direct sales, anything, and then we put it in a paper map because we were still doing paper. But my goal was to allow people, when they're deciding where they're buying produce, whether it's a week ahead or it's on their way home from work, they could see which farmers markets were close. What is your plan, or do you have an online presence where people can start to do that?
Yeah, I mean, Stephen just walked in and I feel like that's the part of the. Yeah,
Okay,
exactly.
the next, okay.
I would say that I think we decided internally to transition to an online resource because the booklets get out of date. So
No, that's what I'm saying. I would see no
No,
reason to use
farm
paper.
changes hands.
I mean, you
or
hold that and
farmers
they
market
say you're on
decides
Medicare,
to
you have-
shutter.
you have a booklet.
Right, but we would put all this time and energy into creating a beautiful booklet.
No,
and
I'm
then
not
it would
asking
get out
you
of
to do
date.
that. Ann.
So
It
Steve's
needs to
gonna
be-
share the map.
It needs to be on your watch.
Yeah.
You need to be able to have it on your watch, because I think one of the things that I saw at that point, but I think it's still true, people like fresh food. People, especially, well, all people like to be connected to those who produce food or those who bring them food. So all of that is good for health. It's good for promoting agriculture in the community. It's good for security. People talk about food security and they're talking about people being able to buy food to provide for their own families. But I like the idea of having food close to Montgomery County residents just for security reasons. If we have pests someplace or we have a shutdown someplace, that we do produce some food close to where we live. But all those things are possible, and advance your program when people know about it.
Right, yeah, certainly, like you can be growing lots of great food, but you have to be able to reach people to buy it, to make it kind of viable.
And easy, it has to be easy today.
Yeah.
Sam, are food banks included in your program?
Yeah, we have, so in Montgomery County, there are two main food banks that service the county, Share Food Program and Fill Abundance. And so someone from Share is on the leadership team of the council, and we, collaborate, talk to them frequently.
The reason why I ask is, it amazes me with these either restaurants or bakeries or like McCaffrey's or something like that, that they throw the food out on a daily basis, like the breadstuffs, the bagels, cupcakes, whatever it may be. And I asked the manager, so, well, why don't you go to a food bank? Well, it's the liability. We don't want the liability.
Huh.
I mean, how can we overcome that so more people would, like Steve may have a peanut allergy and he doesn't know it when he gets a free bagel or something like that. So my question is, has there been any thought given by the county and or the solicitor's office for something to, let people know that they wouldn't be liable? I mean, I don't know what.
Decrease the exposure so they can do the right thing.
So they can do the right thing. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I mean, there is a lot of that, call it food rescue, that happens of food banks, food pantries, or other organizations going to grocery stores, restaurants, things like that, and taking that food that would be thrown out and moving it through that charitable food system so it can be donated. So, you know, that there is a lot of that work that happens, but clearly there are still some misconceptions, I guess, about liability and that kind of exposure. So it's a good question. I know I've seen in other places kind of like handouts or, you know, like one pagers that can be given to those businesses to explain like, this is legally what's permissible. This is, you know, why it's kind of okay for you to do this, that, you know, I would assume that Share and Phil Abundance have those kind of resources. I haven't asked or seen them directly, but if you know of, you know, again, restaurants or businesses that,
You have to be the linking agent.
Right.
That's what they need.
Yeah.
Is that getting that information back and forth from the student.
right, yes, that's what I was about to say. If you have, those businesses that you talked to that said, you know, they were concerned about the liability, then, you know, I'd love to get that information from you, or we could talk about it and I can try and get you those resources, or we can, you know, figure out how to try and make that connection, because certainly there's no reason why, you know, that food should be getting thrown out.
I mean, you know, like Philly pretzels, I mean, they throw out a couple dozen. You know, because
But
they
some of
don't-
that stuff is time sensitive where.
Right.
But some of it is not. So it's determining what is usable, what's the time frame for getting it to people who can use it. It's all that kind of stuff. And it's probably a lot more technical than we think, but there is ability to do that. There's not ability, there's not capacity.
Is that within the purview of what you're thinking the food policy councils for?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that one's, to me, that one seems pretty easy, like get these reach out to Share and Phil Abundance, get these resources, send them over to you, and then, you know, either if you.
Send them over to who?
Well, in this case, if, you know, whoever has the relationship with the business, right, if it's trying to read your name tag from here, then.
Yeah, I mean, I think the point is, it's, you know, the county or food policy council have the resources to send out information to restaurants or to bakeries.
Just kidding.
You know, even if you
Or the
don't
grocery
blanket and hit everybody, you could hit most of them and send out the information. If there's that misconception, to send out information that counters that misconception.
I mean, I think food waste is a really big topic.
What's that?
Food waste, I think in general, is a really big
I would
topic.
imagine
I
it
could
is.
easily see it being one
Part
of
of these
the
committees.
committee focus areas
Yeah.
going forward, because it's, you know, the market's throwing out produce.
So my thing was my next question, and then I'll stop if a student stops me, is composting. I mean, because there was it 4 Little Acres? What was the one that did the composting?
Oh,
Remember that?
Ned Foley's 2 particular acres,
Whatever.
something like that. Now upscale, Toll Brothers houses.
I'm sorry?
He sold his farm to Toll Brothers.
Oh,
So. You have the $1 million that you have from ARPA. What's the timeline? Like, how long is that money going to last? And, you know, is there a legacy of the Food Policy Council past the funding that's been provided from ARPA? Is there a commitment to, you know, program this out further than the $1 million is taking?
Right. Yeah, so the timeline for those funds is end of 2026. And the short answer is I'm not sure beyond that.
that's not a plan.
Yeah. I like asked a little bit, but I'm not sure yet what happens post those ARPA funds.
And let's assume that 2026 is the end of funding and, you know, possibly the end of the program or the end of the Food Policy Council. What is the group looking to accomplish? What would be a satisfactory outcome of the efforts of the Food Policy Council?
Yeah, I mean, I would say certainly my goal is that the council continues beyond 2026. It's just a matter of, you know, like obviously finding funding. I'd say 2 things. One is, you know, like just building more of the networks, right? The relationships. So I think a lot of the things that we're doing now, you know, the community gardens, the farmers market networks, those kind of things, you know, those can the council can initiate those, but those are things that then could live on past the council. And then the other thing I'd say is kind of to Ann's point that, you know, we're still trying to identify like a particular project that we want to focus on right now. So it might be composting, for example. And then there'd be something, you know, more concrete that we could say like, this is a thing that we did. But you know, with our leadership team, as I said, we meet monthly for an hour and a half. We usually have a handful of other things to talk about. And so like, because there are so many different options, that's why we're having this retreat in a couple of weeks to really kind of drill down to like, this is the project that we're gonna lead with.
So I'm a little unclear, so not sure. I'm trying to get my hands around what is the goal? I mean, you talked about networking. Is the goal to reduce food insecurity? Is the goal to create a better network so that people have options to get fresh food? Or, you know, I'm not sure what the goal is here is for this.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to grab.
Yeah. I mean, I'd say overall, the goal, right, is to create a more equitable and more sustainable food system. And so there's a lot of ways that we can approach that. To me, I think the networking is a really critical part of it, and that's partially informed by the conversations I've been having with, you know, all the various stakeholders within the food system who have been giving me that feedback, right? That like, we want to connect more, we want to learn more, we want to be collaborating more. We just need a space and a way to have that facilitated. But then, you know, like what that other goals, like you said, reducing food security, increasing food production as you were talking about, right? Like the number of farms and their viability and the access to local consumers, reducing food waste, right? There are lots of goals, I would say, that again, those are all things we've been talking about in the leadership team. That, you know, we'd like to see all of these things happening. We can, you know, there are like little bites that we can take, but then figuring out kind of what a larger kind of concentrated effort on one of those is still what we're trying to figure out.
What Stephen might be getting at is at the end of your defined funding, your ARPA funding, there would either be, this is a report. These are the things that we think we need in Montgomery County. These things can be done by an ongoing organization, which could be funded by X, Y, and Z. These things can be spun off and go to farmland preservation, nonprofit, you know, food pantries, whatever. But that more concrete of what we would want to know, because either you need to say, we're here to define what we need, and these are the things we need to do going forward, funding wise and support wise, or we're here just to do a report and spin stuff out to other places.
Or at the end and say, this is what we've accomplished.
And that's it.
Right.
So just a report to say we've, you know, reduced food insecurity by X, or we created a network where, you know, what Bob was saying, we've been able to accumulate X amount of tons of leftover food because we've created a network, you know. That's kind of where, I mean, that's what I'm trying to understand is where it's headed.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's, you know, that's certainly what we'll be creating that kind of impact report, you know, like at the end of this year, showing those types of connections. As I mentioned, we've already made a lot of those kind of connections, showing the value that the council has added to the food system, as well as, you know, like any of those benchmarks that we have about impact for farmers, for reducing food insecurity, things like that.
We've talked about, I'm sorry, go Bob.
Okay, thanks. Is there of your budget of $1 million and change? Has that been earmarked in any particular order? Or is it, I mean, with all due respect, or, you know, third quarter of 2026, all of a sudden we're looking for buying farm equipment or things that really doesn't have anything to do with it, but it, you know, it's a piece of farm equipment. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, where's the money going to go?
Yeah, so that's, I mentioned the grant program that we're gonna be starting this summer. That's a little more than half of the funds are gonna go to that. I mean, you know, the other little less than half has mostly been for kind of operational stuff for basically for my salary and benefits, for you know, travel, for material supplies, for all that kind of stuff.
I was gonna say, the $1 million was never meant to just support the Food Policy Council. The Recovery Office, when it was reviewing applications for the ARPA funds, couldn't figure out how to best allocate money to the $75 million of requests from food-related organizations. So their solution was to just punt it to the Food Policy Council and figure it out later.
On that.
Yeah.
Well, that's what you said, figure out how to spend that, but also in the future. I want you to know, we are not adversarial at all. I mean, it's really an exciting, wonderful thing, and there's no one on this board that is not interested in food, I promise you. So, but, I'm sorry?
It's one of my favorite things.
I know, me too. But the reality is, since we're representing planners, we need to plan. So that's what our questions are about. Oh, this is all really good, but we're also very nervous because we see wonderful projects get started and then put, you know, and farming in Montgomery County needs a lot of support because there's a huge amount of pressure. So,
Yeah.
I mean, we're supportive of but we want to also kind of help guide a long-term kind of strategy for keeping it viable.
Yeah.
I would separate from that a little bit. I mean, I'm less, excuse me. I'm less concerned about the farming aspect, with respect to the farm program in the county, because I think, you know, Steve does a great job, I think the county and organizing that. But I think one of the issues, and certainly came to light in the pandemic, as you said in the beginning, was this weight of food insecurity and how, and we've seen it grow. I mean, you've even brought it up, your slide said 6%, but it's really 8%. And how that has become such a light has been shined upon that. And to me, it seems like that's the thing that needs to be reduced. I don't know that it's going to solve, but we know that we have food deserts. We know that Norristown is one of them. That we have food deserts where we can't connect certain populations to quality food or to quality, you know, farmers markets or anything like that. So to me, it's like, that's
Highest priority.
to me, that's the highest priority, you know, and how to connect the work that Steve does with the food council, which I think you're already, you know, so clearly you're already integrated, but I think why do people have food insecurity?
Because they don't know it's there. How do we get that out?
I don't know the answer, like, it's because, I mean, I'm assuming a lot of it's because they don't have the income to purchase food.
Right.
Or do they not have the means to get to the food that is better than going to the corner, you know, store that just sells like Wawa stuff? You know, what is it that creates this food insecurity, and how is that, and how can we start to fill some of those or solve some of those gaps? And what resources can be pulled together from other efforts throughout the county, including the farm program?
Yeah, I mean, those are definitely questions we've been talking about as well. The report on food insecurity that I mentioned before, you know, really looked at mostly at kind of like government programs, SNAP, WIC, school lunch program, things like that within the county. You know, and there are significant gaps in like likely eligible versus, you know, number of people enrolled. So that's, you know, one of the examples of a type of project that we've been talking about with the leadership team of like, okay, how do we reduce this gap, right? Like, how do we as you were saying, understand what are barriers to getting enrolled in SNAP, what strategies would be helpful in, and then getting based on that in getting people signed up and utilizing the program. Because that's money that's on the table that can help address those. I mean, for WIC, and this trends nationally too, it's about 50%. 50% of people who are likely eligible are enrolled in the program. So there's
Stigma using these programs too.
right, yeah, right. So it's complicated, you know, in turn, it's not just like, oh, we need to make some flyers and put them out in the community, right? But it's understanding what are the stigmas or the barriers that are involved. But certainly we're, you know, working closely with the Montco Anti-Hunger Network, which is a network of kind of all of the pantries within the county, to try and best understand like what are the challenges that the pantries and their clients are seeing. They're talking about doing a survey now with some of their pantry partners, you know, to survey their clients to, just like you were saying, understand like what are the root causes that are that are driving food insecurity. And so then being able to use that information to inform kind of some of our decision making.
I mean, there's two facts here. There's plenty of food being produced, whether it's restaurants, food banks, farmers, whatever it is, there's plenty of food, right? And the other is that there's people that have food insecurity. And the link has something, we have to figure out the link.
Yes.
And that's why I keep beating a dead horse here, but that's, to me, is objective number one, is to try to reduce that food insecurity and to connect the two. So,
I mean, maybe as part of that $1 million, you buy a small bus and say, on Monday, you know, come here and we're gonna drive to the food bank. And, you know, and Tuesday, it's gonna be up in Lansdale, and Wednesday will be in Warrisville, so that the people that don't have the vehicle or don't know that there's a food bank where they get free food, will become aware of it, and that'll probably spread like wildfire.
I mean, that's, you know,
Almost like a book.
good,
Right.
all good suggestions, it's just how best to do it, I think. The stigma issue is definitely a problem.
Yeah.
You know, people are, I mean, we've talked about that before, that people that are food insecure are feel the stigma of going on some of those programs and avoid it.
Yeah.
To their own detriment in one sense, but they see it as, you know. Anyhow, I mean, that, you know, those are my last thoughts on it. I'm quiet now, so. Is there anybody else that has, before we let Sam go? Yes.
You know, and John will certainly, I'm sure will be supportive in any ways, but just as an office, I just wanted to say, you know, you know, I've seen programs get started or kick-started, you know, with the initial funding, and then you get to the point, how are we gonna continue? And sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. So and I'm not telling you anything you don't know, I'm sure, but you know, the ability to create some wins or the impacts, you know, in the next year and a half to make that case demonstrated, and it's a case, hopefully, you know, we can be supportive of making with you or again, supporting, results in a longer term commitment, because it definitely will take. It'd be a shame to see the energy and the effort put in, and then it, you know, kind of get.
Where are you housed?
Office of Public Health.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I have.
Yeah, go.
Were the lockers that were placed at Family Promise in Roslyn, were they funded by the council or monies received through the council?
No, that was before, that was also ARPA funding, so.
Because that's a huge one. So at the Family Promise location in Roslyn, so they have certain hours of operation. But what if you can't make those hours of operation? They have like refrigerated lockers.
Amazon locker.
Exactly, where you can go pick up things at your convenience. You place your order and it's there,
Possible.
making it possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, there's food banks all over the place. My wife volunteers at the Jenkintown food bank. I don't forget the name of it, but she goes every Saturday and delivers food to people that are food insecure. So.
Yeah, I mean, that's like, there's a lot of work that's happening, like trying to solve these issues.
Just so you know, I go with her every so often when she can tolerate me. But it's not every week. Because you can't
You're
tolerate
usually
me.
not
I
invited.
can't imagine it is.
And a lot of us help
Just say-
deal with some of that stigma, right?
Mhm.
Because you can go in the evening, you can go whenever it's
Can be a
convenient.
solo
That's such an
activity.
interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really
Yeah,
good.
exactly.
Cool.
That was the ribbon cutting that I mentioned where Commissioner Rafika made that joke yesterday was at Family Promise for those lockers. And I was talking with Marcia, the ED there at Family Promise, who was, we were like, all right, so what does it look like to expand this, to grow this, to bring it to other places? So.
All right, wait, Chloe has something to say.
Well, I was gonna ask about community fridges, because I know there was an issue with the one, and people don't know, this is a trend of just putting a refrigerator outside. And anyone can come and put something in or take something out at any time. So if you make too much dinner
Right.
and you don't wanna eat the leftovers, you can put that in the community fridge. It could be a restaurant or someone who has 2 extra cucumbers from the garden can put it in there, people can walk up and take whatever they want. As far as I know, there was only one in Montco outside of the Ambler Weaver's Way location, but they had to shut it down for a while. I think it
Tough
might be
one.
back up, but Sam probably knows better.
That sounds problematic.
Yeah. The issue was that because it was
See the mold doesn't mean it's not there.
Right.
Go ahead, Sam.
The issue is that because it was attached to like a retail store, which is inspected by, the health department. Just as we're talking about there, right? Like there's no kind of regulation of what goes in and goes out and whatever. So they tried to move it just like across the street to a church where, the inspectors don't know it's there, then they can kind of turn a blind eye kind of thing. But the church didn't want it, and so it's been like a whole process over a year or so. But I think to your point that they just found someone else to host it. There may be other community fridges in the county, but there's no they're just they're very DIY, right? Like you said, someone like plugs in a fridge and says, puts a sign and says community fridge, and then they're really not regulated, so there's no kind of way of knowing what that network of them looks like.
That's something that policy council talked about this. Do you think it's like a good idea to support, because we see they're popping up in Philly all over the places. And I think the key is that someone has to take ownership of it, like just the neighbor or whoever put it out there goes by there like every day and tags things that are in there, throws things out that are gross. Something's been in there for a few days, they'll toss or whatever, and also publicizes it. But it can be a good option, like literally feeding neighbors. So I don't know, talk about it all.
Yeah, it isn't something we've talked about too much. Yeah, we could bring it up and see. I think, partially because it is more like decentralized and that that kind of like DIY solution, it's harder to figure out like what creating a program to create community fridges, and especially like because we're like within the county, then like the public health piece of it, like it would get a little complicated there, right? Yeah.
No, my luck, I put a refrigerator out, the theater would figure out a way to. Yeah. Well, thanks, Sam, appreciate it. Hopefully we've not been. Don't come across too critical, but helpful, so.
No, not at all. I appreciate the
Important issues,
conversation.
and we're glad somebody's working on it.
Yeah, no, thank you all for the time and feedback. It's helpful.
Keep Ann busy, she's got nothing,
I got a lot of.
nothing to do.
Yeah.
So,
All right,
Thank you.
thanks.
Thanks, Sam. On our farm preservation annual summary and its tourism initiative.
And before you leave, you're not gonna leave. I know
We
you're
have to be on the
gonna
agenda.
but after hearing Sam,
Provide information.
after hearing Sam and also thinking about what we're working on for our comprehensive plan, one of the issues I think that everyone has to recognize is in Montgomery County, all citizens need to have a safe and stable place to live and a safe and stable food source. And when we see the numbers of our neighbors and the people, the citizens in the county who have concerns about housing and food for a very affluent community like Montgomery County, a lot of people don't know. And I don't know that knowing makes for more support, but I think it also does help in recognizing how important these issues are as we move forward. So As chair of that committee, I want people to understand where we are and how many people need some help.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Sam.
Yeah.
Start to share. All right, Steve. Clicker,
Okay.
Good morning, Steve. How are you?
Good morning, everyone. How are you?
Sorry about the false alarm order,
No, no problem.
but thanks for being online for us.
Of course. I'm always here for that.
Yeah, get Matt Kovac out of there.
Hi, Steve.
Surprise him.
Yeah,
Keeping up my presentation.
yeah.
Could transplant his face on.
Into the basement you go, Matt.
All right, everyone, hopefully this works because this text shouldn't be like that, but this is the 2024 annual summary for farmland preservation. So let's get started. And just a quick look at what we'll be talking about today. We'll be looking at all the preserved farms, just in 2024, and also taking a deeper dive into each one of those farms. Some updates and goals about the program, certain farmland trends that we've seen within the program, and then 2 agritourism initiatives that I'll talk on. So let's start with all of the preserved farms. And on this map is showing all of the preserved farms inside of the county. As of the end of 2024, we have 10,582 acres preserved on 191 farms. And then also in Pennsylvania, there are over 646,000 acres preserved on over 6,400 farms. This continues to prove that Pennsylvania is the leader in the nation when it comes to actual preserved acres and preserved farms. A lot of people might not think of that because of all the farms and open space out west, but Pennsylvania does lead the nation when it comes to the preservation efforts of farmland. All right, so taking a closer look at the preserved farms in 2024, the ones that we preserved. This map is going to show the location of, oh my goodness, of all of these farms. And as you can see, we preserved 6 farms. These 6 farms total 126 acres. They're spread throughout 6 different townships in the county. Not only in 6 different townships, but the townships are actually pretty spread throughout the county itself, which is always a welcoming thing to see. They're not really clustered in the upper portion of the county where most of our farmland is in the Douglas area, the New Hanover area, and I'll kind of touch on that a little bit later in the presentation. And then just taking a closer look at these 6 farms. And we'll start with the Frankenfield farm in Franconia. The outline for each of these farms is the yellow outline going around the property. The Frankenfield farm is 11.75 acres along Allentown Road. This does exclude all of their buildings that front along Allentown Road. This farm has been in their family since the 1800s, and he is a 6th generation farmer. This is their home farm. And on their farm, they have pasture where they raise cattle for beef and they grow a bunch of vegetables. And then also on their property, they have a little farm store where they sell all of the produce that they grow and then, you know, also bring in from outside farmers as well.
What's the total now? Because they preserved.
For that
Yeah, that's
specific
animal.
family,
Is that
yes,
animal?
yeah.
But
The
that-
total that they've actually preserved, I'm not sure, but it's probably close to 200 acres. Their
And
wood
it's
farm is
in
rather
Franklin.
large. Yes,
So that's a family really,
Yeah.
really dedicated to
yes,
farming.
definitely. Yeah, and they already have transition plans with the children taking over and I'm sure grandchildren at some point, yeah.
They said there's a connection between Frankenfield and Franconia.
I don't know.
And then next we have the Renninger Farm. This is in Douglas. This was a 20-acre preservation effort. This does exclude their little homestead right here. This is just a simple hay operation. It's been in the family for a little over 30 years. And they are adjacent to two already preserved farms.
It's good to see for the next time you do this, when you put these up, I want to know what they're next to, because if they're that small, of course, most people don't realize if they're that small and they come in and do a program, they're touching something that's preserved. But it makes me feel better when I see the big blocks coming together.
Yeah, typically I do actually have that, but this presentation was put together somewhat last minute and the layers weren't working properly. But yeah, so all this farm surrounding, that's all preserved and it's comprised of two different farms.
That's kind of very,
Yeah,
for me, it
tells the story.
Yeah.
Sure.
No matter who tells the county.
Of course. Well, don't we all
It's a
know
very
that?
small thing, Stephen. You don't have to worry about the ARPA money. You just do.
Okay, and next we have the Greater Farm. This is in Lower Frederick. He preserved 40 of the 48 acres. He didn't need to exclude 8 acres of the preservation just to meet our minimum criteria. So outlined is the 40 acres. These are the 8 acres along Smith Road that he had to exclude. The hay that is harvested off this farm, he does donate right to the farmer. No charge at all. A lot of our landowners do charge some type of fee to have the farmers come in and harvest the crops. But he decides not to. He just strictly donates it right to them. This farm, we actually saw a lot of support from Lower Frederick and Schwenksville officials at our farm board meeting several years ago because of the location of it. Off the screen a little bit to the right is Main Street running through Schwenksville. We did also kind of save this farm from development because I believe this property right here is going to be developed at some point, and then this one to the south off the screen, that's also being developed. That's in 3 different townships. So those 2 developments alone are really increasing the pressure to the community. He had several offers from developers sitting on his desk, but luckily we were able to offer him just enough to get him to preserve the property. But the reason there was so much support from the 2 townships is just because of the infiltration that goes on in this farm. There was a lot of concerns with all the runoff being directed to Main Street down to Schwenksville because they're already seeing it. The fire chief actually from Schwenksville was, he attended our farm board meeting and spoke on that.
Have there been any municipal contributions to these 3 that we just saw
To these 3, there was a contribution on the Frankenfield farm
from Franconia?
from Franconia.
Based on-
And the Brenninger, there was no contribution. Greater Farm, I don't believe there was. Okay, and then next up, we have the Marriott Farm. This is a very small farm. It's only 6 acres. This is in New Hanover. It's a simple hay operation. It adjoins the rest of their property, which is already preserved here to the south. And then another farm up here, which is already preserved. This was just recently purchased back into the family. The father sold it back in the 80s to the neighboring property. The neighbor obviously didn't want it anymore, so the son, Rob, has now purchased this back. He wanted to preserve it. It's completely landlocked. It made sense to preserve it. This was a county-only effort when it came to purchase.
There's a lot of woodlands next to it.
Yes, yeah, that is the Girl Scouts. Property,
See,
yeah.
that's why I had
Yes.
to know.
Yeah, I figured.
Because I'm,
Yeah.
I'm ready to go to DCNR about that.
Yes, yeah,
They
yeah, so
already-
we're good.
They already paid, so
Yeah.
might go the second time.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. And then the last 2, this one is the Beringer Farm. This is in Upper Hanover, 18 acres. He raises sheep down here along the creek, which is also the pasture and the hayfield. And then up here, their property cuts right through an existing preserved farm field. That's just a simple feed crop operation. And they are adjacent to 2 already preserved farms surrounding this
The
property.
blue cough? No.
Yes.
Yes.
Mhm. Yep.
Chelsea, you're really good at this.
Some stuff stays. Some
I would
stuff
never play against you in
That's
this
game.
Tell me you don't enjoy farmland preservation. And last but not least, we have College Settlement of Philadelphia. This was a 30-acre preservation effort. This is the home of the Pennypack Farm and Education Center. It's a CSA operation. Off the screen here, all of these woods over here in this property, that is CSP, College Settlement Philadelphia. That is their property. They host camps for kids throughout the summer. And as part of those camps, they actually use this farm every now and then for classes for the kids for educational purposes. But they all have also expanded that in recent years to include adults. So they open it up to the public. And the reason for these classes is to really just teach the basics of organic farming, sustainability when it comes to the food systems. And they describe how to really incorporate all healthy food into any diet that you might have, being gluten-free or a normal diet or.
My favorite story about this is the kids used to come to the camp, and a lot of kids from Philadelphia come. And they'd come and they'd show them how you grow things. And one of the kids that came went out and got to pick vegetables. And one of the things they were picking for the season they were there were potatoes. And he came back and he asked the counselor, but who buries the potatoes before we get them the next day? So it just shows that these kind of situations show folks where the food really comes from, where kids understand what they're eating and what it takes to produce it. So this kind of preservation for us is just imperative, because look at the breadth of populations that can come to these places. You have Philadelphia, you have rural Montgomery County. These are really important places to protect.
Exactly, and it is, especially this one, being in Horsham, there's not many farms in Horsham. This is the first preserved farm in Horsham. So yeah, it was a monumental preservation for us, and so much so that we actually held an event last year at CSP, the one building on their property, where all three county commissioners attended. We have representatives from the state, also from Horsham Township, and then just other attendees from CSP and the Pennypack organization there. So yeah, the Pennypack, they do a great job when it comes to the educational programs and teaching kids and adults both the best practices.
And Chelsea, since you were asking, Horsham Township did contribute financially to this.
Yes.
celebration.
I mean, not all communities, not all townships can, but when we encourage them and they recognize the importance and they have the resources, it's nice to see some support.
Yeah, in Horsham, they were very, very supportive of this. And they couldn't wait to contribute to the funds. Yeah. All right. We'll move on here to just some updates and goals about the program itself. In 2024, here's a list of updates and accomplishments for the program. We worked extensively with our IT department upstairs to build us a new farm database. Our old one was 30+ years old, outdated, clunky. So we were able to update that, and obviously it's a lot more useful for us. Already discussed, we preserved 126 acres on 6 different farms. Also in 2024, we had 11 total applicants come into the program in 10 different townships. 7 of those farms accepted our offers, which will total 247 acres. We held our 3rd annual farmers gathering. This one was a little bit different from previous years. The past 2 years, we held them at local parks. This one was held at the 4-H Center and Creamery. And each year I've been trying to expand these events and make it more educational towards the farmers or the attendees, trying to figure out certain ways to just make it beneficial to just show up rather than just showing up and networking, which is a great thing, don't get me wrong, but at some point it needs to advance. So last year we held it at the 4-H Center and we had a handful of vendors attend. We had representatives from PASA show up, USDA, the County Conservation District, Penn State Extension, and several others, just to give information on the resources and grants that they might provide. That was a really successful event again, had over 70 attendees and more positive feedback. So we'll be looking to hold another one this year.
I want to give a shout out. Steve did a really nice job with that this past year, and Commissioner Bella came by and had some remarks, and Representative Mary Jo Daly stopped by as well. And so it was really, I thought it was well done event.
And then the Field to Family map and the Ag Venture, those are the 2 agritourism initiatives that I'll be speaking on in just a few minutes. Sam already spoke on the Ag Venture Challenge. And then always, of course, we produce newsletters every year and do the annual inspections on certain farms. And then just a quick list of any 2025 goals that we have. I'll be looking to work for and create a new inspection database, much like the farm database. Our inspection database is outdated and clunky. So just creating a new one for that to be more efficient. Also be designing a new annual summary booklet with the design team in our office, Pattie's team. Again, just outdated, time to revamp it and just make it a little bit more appealing. Every 7 years, we are We have to recertify our program guidebook. This is the 7th year, so I'm working through that now to recertify the guidebook. And then on top of that, we'll be meeting with the farm board to discuss any type of changes to the guidelines that we might want to make. Hopefully, potentially, we could preserve our 200th farm this year. We might cut it close and might not make it, but it is a goal for us this year and a possibility. A much larger event that I am getting excited about. I'm going to begin coordinating a career and job fair for high school students, college students, and interested adults. This was spurred just a few weeks ago. I was kind of going through some of Berks County's plans that they've been doing, and I noticed a flyer for a career fair that they just held this past November. So I reached out to them and sat down with their director of their farmland program to talk about this and figure out the logistics for it. But essentially, it's just open to any high school students and college students, and again, interested adults. The vendors that could be there would be local private companies, government agencies, and other colleges, just connecting students to ag-related fields because we have such a diverse, ag-related fields in the county. So just to connect the high school students with any type of job offers or anything like that. Again, just.
No tech doesn't do anything with agriculture, do they? I mean, I guess it's not considered.
Yeah, not really their expertise, but yeah, I'll be working through the MCIU to do outreach to all these schools and.
You know what would be
get it
great
going.
if we could get some kind of grant program, maybe privately funded, to pay stipends for kids to have internships or work study with some of the ag businesses.
Mhm.
You know, because the issue of finding the next generation of farmers, as you know, is really an important component of the work that you do. It's great when you take hay off, but there are other things that our farmland could be producing if we found the right people. And we might need to be nurturing them a little earlier and through some kind of support to get them.
Yeah, and that's a great idea, Dulcie, and definitely noted. And hopefully that's, what the career or job fair could accomplish is.
Steve, you've done a great job with this program. It's just wonderful to see its metamorphosis. And thank you.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that, Dulcie. I mean, I take a lot of pride, in the program and in my work. And, the more and more I do the work, I realize how important farmers are. And I always know it, but, making the connection, these relationships with the farmers, it's important. So, yeah. No. And then the last goal would just be to have a successful Ag Venture Challenge with a kickoff event at a local preserve farm. Sam and I and Ann were just coordinating on that yesterday, which farms would make sense. So we'll be doing that this year as well. And then just a couple quick trends on the farmland program itself. Last year, a couple board members asked if I was noticing any type of trends in the program. So I just wanted to highlight a couple that I have noticed over the past several years. Beginning on the left are the number of new applicants by year. So as you can see, the past 5 years is where we've really seen the uptick in applicants, especially in 2022 with 17, again, new applicants. These aren't re-applicants, these are all new applicants, first time in the program. So really the last 5 years, we've seen the uptick. We've been really busy in the program the past few years. And as you can see, this is why. And then on the right, that image is actually a breakdown of applicants in the past 3 years. It's kind of tough to see on this screen, but the pink polygons represent the 2022 applicants, the blue are the 2023, and the red are the 2024. And then the grayed out section is what we deem as the significant farmland area in the county. This is where really just a lot of our farms are. They're all within that gray area. But within that significant farmland area, I also believe there's a core within that significant farmland area. And that's this area up in the Upper Hanover, Douglas, New Hanover area where a lot of our preserved farms are, or just existing farms. And throughout the program's history, that's typically where we've seen the applicants come in at. Again, it's hard to see on this screen, but 2022, that's where the majority of our applicants have come in. And then in 2023 and 2024, you start to see the spur not only to the outskirts of the significant farmland area, but just out of it. You know, we have a cluster of them down here. There's one all the way down here in Lower Providence or Upper Providence, excuse me. And then a cluster out here, and then Horsham, the CSP farm all the way out here. So we're starting to see the sprawl of applicants coming out of that significant. Sure, yeah. Although it could be a farm sprawl, you know. So we're starting to see that, you know, come out a little bit outside of that farmland area, which is great to see. You know, because it's.
What's your backlog?
I mean, we don't really have, well, we do have a backlog because we have obviously applicants that we haven't made offers to. But it's not like it used to be. I mean, the backlog used to be 20, 30 farms. Now, I think we only had technically one reapplicant this year.
So do you, I'm sure you do have a wish list, a priority list
Mhm.
of, you know, farms that you really, really want?
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, there's.
I'm not asking you to put that up here.
Yeah,
You know,
no,
we
yeah.
have too many, you know.
Yeah, no, there's definitely certain farms or in certain locations that are high priority. A lot of farms seeing development pressure. Again, just like the Greater Farm, he had offers sitting on his desk.
And it really, you know, being somebody who's worked in conservation for decades now, it's not every farm that we should preserve. Sometimes they're in places that we need to develop. It's the right farm in the right location.
Yeah.
I mean, although everything, you know, for a lot of us is important to keep. In reality, we want the ones that really have momentum, not momentum, but that have access to services, access to additional acreage. That's where we need to do it.
Yeah. Yep, yeah, spot on, Dulcie.
Does what the farm grow play into the decision?
Soils do. They're not necessarily what we're-
Kind of, sort of, you know, I think we would prioritize a farm growing produce or, you know, food for the community over just a simple hay operation. But there's so many other factors that go into it. Is it contiguous to already preserved farms, the location of it, how large the property might be? But yeah, I mean,
If you're looking at the farm isolated, producing food would be prioritized over producing Pattie or.
personally, yes.
Yeah.
But they're niche.
But it's the land, we're preserving the land, not the operation.
Yeah, but I understand that, but it's farm preservation, so they're farms, so they're producing something. Is there a priority in the analysis of that thing?
Right, yeah, I would definitely say so.
Yes, Steve? I have a question. So hypothetically, I have a 100-acre farm in town Messon. And I want to preserve it. Let's just, what would be the monetary benefit to me to preserve it? And then if for some reason, 2 generations later, they want to develop it, what do they have to do to get that removed?
Well, to answer your second question first, there is nothing that they can do. There's no way to withdraw from the program. You can't, you know, give us the money back and withdraw your property from the program. Once you are preserved, it is in perpetuity.
Is the county named in the easement
If they're funded partially by the county, yes.
or the township or something?
Yeah, whoever contributes to the funds are named in the easement.
And that's the reason why it's permanent, because you would need them to release that if you wanted it to be released.
Yeah.
But I missed the part of, what would be the monetary benefits?
Yeah, so what we offer you through the program is we get each property appraised. And in that appraisal report, you'll see 3 different values. You'll see the market value of the land, which is what a developer could offer you. And you'll see the agricultural value of the land, which is what your land is worth as if you were preserved. And then the difference of that is the easement value. That's what we can offer. So we can't offer you what a developer can, and that's the reason why we get turned down for offers. But depending on what your zone or your location, all the other different factors of your farm, you know, it can increase your value and give you a significant amount of money. You know, the farms that I just highlighted, those 6 farms, a couple of those, they received some nice offers. So there's different factors on, you know, what you are appraised at, but that's our formula. That's what we can offer you.
And it's an actual cash or is it a tax benefit?
Oh, no, it's money.
Yeah, we go to settlement and the applicants, they either receive a check or a wire right then and there.
And if,
And you retain ownership of the land. So one day when, you know, 2 generations later, you won't be able to develop it, but you can sell it. So
someone else.
basically a transaction done in 2 parts.
Yeah, and then of course, when you sell it, it's sold as a preserved farm, so a little bit, you know, not as expensive to whoever's purchasing it, but you still get.
And we found that the appraised value of these preserved farms has gone up over the years. I don't know what it's recently, but I know people who have bought a farm, sold their development rights and then go to sell it 15 years later, and they're surprised what the additional value is. If you also if you sell your development rights below appraised value, you can also have a tax benefit.
Is that right?
I think
Yes.
so. Which, you know, for someone who has substantial resources, you get the money and then you have the tax benefit, which you can carry forward.
Hey, Steve, is the DVRPC the agency that might have a map that shows the 5 surrounding counties in similar preserved farms to kind of see that whole southeastern PA snapshot? Or do you know what we are compared to like Bucks County and Berks and Montgomery?
In terms of total preserved farms and
Yeah, just to
acres?
kind of to see that picture of like all the preserved farmland in the southeastern.
I'd have to reach, I don't know if DVRPC would have it, but I'll have to reach out to some of my contacts to see if I can.
Oh, no, you can do that.
See if I can.
But because the other thing, where we're preserving farms right now, we had a lot of challenges back in the aughts because Berks County was not focusing there. So although there was a lot of farmland right across the county line, they weren't targeting that for preservation, and they also didn't pay as much. So when you look at regionally, what's that county line mean? It doesn't mean anything for farmers who are buying machinery and the support infrastructure. But we wanted to preserve farms over there, so there was a tension. We wanna preserve those farms and maybe across the county line. They have it, it's high density. So the question you're asking is really important. Now, some of that has changed and there are more preserved acreage along that line. But that's the issue when you have townships doing things and counties doing it as opposed to regional work.
Thanks.
Okay, so moving along. This is the Montgo Ag Venture. This is what Sam just discussed in his presentation, so we can kind of just skip right over this. And we will get to the agritourism map called Field to Family. And I showed a draft version of this last year during the board meeting. And then since then, John Sinker has come into our GIS section and was able to really take my idea and run with it and kind of revamp my whole design on it. And then, of course, Anastasia comes at the end and puts all her amazing design touches on it. But this map was essentially designed to really connect the community with the farms. And it's an interactive map that showcases the local farms that engage in agritourism or sell fresh products and produce. And it does promote that community engagement and enhances awareness of the diverse experiences that the county has to offer when it comes to the farms. So what you'll see here on this map, and this is something that I've been working on probably too long, if you ask Ann. I put a lot of work into this. I mean, this is going back over a year.
Don't worry, we're not gonna ask Andy.
Going through all the different templates and everything, trying to figure out what works best. And we came to this, and on this map, you'll see all the dots that represent some type of farm that offers products or produce or some type of agritourism. This is the master list on the left of all the farms that you'll see on the map. And then on the right, we have a list of activities and products.
That's what I was talking about.
Yeah, exactly. And then also business types. So if you just wake up one day and decide, I want to go to farmers markets, well, you can come in here, you can click the farmers markets, and then it automatically populates the farm or the map. And then for each of these, if you click on the actual farm, you'll bring up all the information, what they had to offer, contact information. So, this is really, I do have flowers. Would you like to look for some flowers?
I know some, but that's really fun to do.
So you can come in here and these are all the farms that offer either pre-cut flowers or pick your own.
Find yourself flowers. would be best.
We have a business type for pick your own right here. So these are the farms that offer pick your own flowers. So really, it's just endless possibilities. This highlights all farms in the county. It's not just preserved farms. So again, any type of farm in the county that offers food and agritourism, whatever it might be, it'll be on this map. And this is going to be, already is available to the public, but hoping to kind of republish it again now that it's completely finalized and farm season is starting.
Can you find out where you can get hay?
You can just take a trip to just about any farm and then you get it there. But with that said, there is one farm on here that does routinely sell feed products, which hay being included.
And if somebody was to have an excess amount of firewood.
If there's something specifically you want to on here, Steve, I'm sure we can. So yeah, that is the overall concept of the map. And all of its functions. That is it. Any questions?
Any other questions for Steve?
Nice job.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. So that website,
So cool.
can you block certain emails from looking at that website?
Depends what you're planning on doing.
Asking for a friend?
Can, yes, will.
I want to make sure my wife never has an option.
Oh.
Oh, okay.
Do a lot more shopping, huh?
I'll be traveling all over the county.
Well, you can send me an email after this meeting. We'll figure
Okay,
it out.
thank you. Any other questions for Steve? Thanks, Steve, appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks,
Nice
Steve.
Good job.
All right, Dave. Characteristics of the new housing.
Keep them out.
Oh, dear. We go from one to three.
Well, while we're changing, I also connect that to the comp plan, which is that we had a focus group that was attended by someone who works at College Settlements. And she said the first issue that she wanted us to solve with Mako 2050 was public transportation to College Settlements Farm, because they're not just a farm, like Steve said, they're an education center, farm and education center. They have summer camps, and she was thinking particularly for her staff, like summer camp counselors. Some of them don't drive and they can't get there. She has trouble hiring people. Anyway, so we connected Mako 2050 there. Glad we understood the farm. Okay, now-
Really one more.
Rapid fire, go back.
It's nice to know everyone's not, but some of us are so enthusiastic about our projects.
Yeah. Right, Steve.
Right.
Okay.
How you doing, Dave?
Good. How's everyone doing this morning? Hopefully well. Well, I'm about to have some either great or potentially also sobering news, but with our median housing prices report for 2024.
By the way, look at it.
That's right.
That's right. Yes, absolutely. So yes, we've completed our annual analysis of the median house prices for new and existing housing of our primary house types. So just a quick overview and some comparisons to last year. So our overall median price for housing in Montgomery County in 2024 was $457,000. And that was a slight increase from last year of about 7%, $32,000. We also had a total of 9,730 home sales this past year. That's slightly up from 2023, like almost a couple hundred more sales. So getting into just a little bit of the specifics, and specifically new homes had a median price of $661,420, which is a slight increase last year. And existing homes, which are of course the overwhelming majority of our inventory, had a median price of $432,000. So all housing types saw increases in their median house prices, which is pretty much the pattern that we're seeing broadly. And we're going to get a little more into it. I know this is going to be a lot of numbers here, but I promise it'll be interesting. breaking it down by housing type this year and the last couple of years, so 457,000 overall, single family detached, 540,000. Attached homes had 385,000, multifamily is 260,000. So overall increases across the board, but as you can see from the last few years, housing sales have declined, which for not surprising reasons that I'll get into.
Can you say that? Housing.
The number of
I
units.
feel like the number of units sold has declined slightly since really kind of, yeah, the height of 2020, and then slight increase. And I'm going to show a broader timeline showing that. Here is the housing sale price by type just over the last 10 years. So you can see starting off 2014, getting out of the recession, steady increases, and then it starts to accelerate, getting into in the COVID years. This is the number of homes sold by type, what that pattern looks like over the past decade. So, you know, it was pretty stable through 2019, 2020. Then it really shot up. Once the first year of COVID, people were moving house, moving away, especially with remote work becoming more prominent. They were moving out of the city, some to less denser areas. And I'm just making sure. Do I have a pointer on this right now?
What is the?
Oh, right. I was gonna say, I can't see it. Must not be working. Oh, well. And then as interest rates really take effect, you start to see a drop in the number of home sales. So not as many people buying homes, which has its own effects, but slight recovery this past year, but you can still see it's pretty well below what the 10-year average has been in terms of the number of homes sold. Breaking out specifically with new units. New units tend to be a little more variable, kind of subject to I think, you know, costs and general trends, and also don't have nearly as many of them as compared to existing sales. But yeah, 661,000 total for new homes, median price, 850,000, almost 854,000 for new detached homes, and just under 555,000 for attached homes. Multifamily, we haven't really had, as you can see, we haven't had a new multifamily sale in a few years. We've had them in several years. Generally, it's your condominiums, but we haven't had those since one of those built since or sold since 2021.
When you say sold, are you talking about the complex being sold or the individual?
Individual units.
So it would have to be a condo.
Right.
Rentals.
Yeah, overwhelming majority, you know, multifamily is, yeah, of course, rental.
You
You know.
say we don't have any record of condos being transferred?
These are newly built.
Yeah,
Newly.
yeah, so these are newly, yeah.
Actually, we're about 600.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Those units.
And then,
Would anybody build a condo today?
We have one, I forget where it is, one just came through this year.
I mean, with rent, the way rental rates are.
Right.
Why would you build it? Good.
so you've got the median housing sale price over the next 10 years for new units. Slight drop in the sale price from 21 into 22 for the single family detached, and then a recovery. Multifamily, so this little dot on 2014, that's multifamily. Then we had them, we've had about 143 new multifamily units sold in 2017 through 2021. So variable years, quite a few years where we didn't have any sold. And then existing units, here's where obviously the majority of our sales are going to take place. Obviously, steadier numbers of 400 and less as well. 432,000 total median price, and then for detached homes, a little over half a million. Single family attached, 351,000, and then multifamilies 260,000. Increases across the board. Sometimes it varies. You know, the rate of increase declined slightly in 22 to 23, and then picked up again in 2024. Here's just a timeline or a line graph showing the decade pattern of those. So pretty steady. Here's a map showing all the municipalities, or the median housing price by municipality. So the top three this year was, and it's typically been somewhat of the same municipalities in each category. The top three is Lower Merion, Horsham, and Worcester, and then rounding out the bottom was Pottstown, Norristown, and Schwenksville. And as we all know, and has been an issue in the county throughout the country, you know, there's affordability issues that have been cropping up the last several years. And what this is a ratio of a comparison of the median housing price relative to the median household income. And this ratio is basically saying, you know, what those comparisons are. So I know it's a small numbers, but in 2024, the ratio is 4.1. So the median price was over 4 times the amount of the median household income. You can see that's only gone up over the years. It was started off low, and then it, you know, took a dive after the recession, slowly recovered, and then it's, you know, only increased since then. And now we're really at the highest differential there for 2024. And this has created issues, you know, like I said, it's beyond the county. So just for some comparable metrics here. And this is from the National Association of Realtors, just for the sake of consistency. I've compared all these. So obviously our median price, as I've told you, is a little different than theirs. But Q3 of last year, we had the 3rd highest median home price sale in the Delaware, at least in the Pennsylvania side of the Philly area, behind Chester County and Bucks County, but ahead of Delaware and Philadelphia. And you know, we're still above the national average or the national median. As you can see, the existing home sales, the sale price of existing homes nationwide was a little over 407,000. So we're about, you know, close to 30,000 above that. So, you know, we're, as much as the nation's kind of generally showing this, we're even, you know, showing an even tighter market. And then just some, now obviously this creates, you know, the supply issue is always at play here. The Philadelphia area was in the bottom 50 of the 200 largest housing markets. The Philadelphia area was in the bottom 50 in terms of their current inventory level relative to their pre-pandemic levels. So we're 52% below what our 2019 inventory levels were. So we got less supply to work with, fewer homes that are actively listed. So you've got more people, you know, fighting to own homes, but over less supply, fewer supply.
Okay, do you have an average of days on market for existing homes?
I can certainly get that. I don't have the exact number, but no, I can get that.
Interesting to see a comparison over the last couple of years. The days on market.
Definitely seems like it's longer, you know, I keep an eye on it and just, you know, prices are dropping in some areas and
That's why I'm
it's
curious.
indicative of days on market.
Because a couple of years ago, days on market was like.
Negative.
Like zero.
Yeah.
So.
It's even not that long ago, but if anything's changed, it's fairly recent.
Yeah. And I still think it's location specific, not necessarily at the county level, but.
Would be interesting to add
control.
that to this each year is to see that how the days on market trends.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, we can definitely get that.
That's DLM. I don't know if you talked to him.
And then just as a recapping everything, so build, that's kind of some of the theme that we've seen related to housing affordability and with median prices increasing, lesser supply, fewer supply, you know, it's a tight market still, and mortgage.
We're preserving them, that's because we're preserving farms.
Yeah, of course, yeah. Well, that's why Chester County's so high, they have more preserved
Yeah.
land than we do.
Battlesfield.
So, and you know, it's not just about the people who want to own homes in the county, but can't afford them, it's also about accommodating the folks who are going to be moving here inevitably. The DVRPC has projected the county's population to increase to 965,000 by 2050. So that's going to be almost 109,000 more people that are going to be coming here to live. And we've been averaging about 2,400 units built over the 10-year period, but that also includes multifamily though, so rentals. So, you know, it becomes an issue of not just taking care of the people now, but we need more supply even just to house the people who are going to be coming here. And if we don't keep up with that, then that's going to exacerbate the issue even more. So, you know, the county's always, or MCPC is always analyzing different numbers to see what kind of effect supply has, and potentially what effect zoning has on affordability. So some promises, but you know, our former community planner, Tim Staub, did a lot of work studying rental data relative to supply units built in some of our boroughs. There's some promise there showing, you know, decreases or stabilization in rent as you build more units, but you know, that's still ongoing. That's just for rent. We've been doing some extensive work with analyzing units built and how that might affect existing sales across the boroughs and the townships. But that's been ongoing, and so far it's kind of been inconclusive in terms of what we've seen as a pattern. So we'll be still researching that and looking at, you know, land values, housing assessment values as well, which we typically don't associate with just market rate sales, but looking at any kind of numbers in the weeds that we can might give us a clue as to how to address this.
Well, I'm gonna give you one more. Cost per square foot.
Yeah.
Is a big number to look at.
It's a huge number.
Huh?
It's a huge number.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and the reason I say that is because you look at these median houses, you don't know what they're getting.
All right.
The cost per square foot. And I don't know how it could differ, if it can get broken out the same way, like by township or certain areas of the county, but it'd be interesting to see what the cost per square foot for each of those different types of housing stock types. So, you know, I gotta tell you, the numbers are crazy. Like I'm working on a project in Chestnut Hill, Philadelphia, and you know, we're projecting 1,000 square foot for the outsale of a condo. I mean, it's crazy.
And those were, yeah, we, in our community planning session, that was definitely analyzed for the, some of the rental studies, but yeah, we definitely will look at that more. Yeah, we'll incorporate those.
I've got one for the DOA, how's that?
You know, the other thing is, this is not for our planning committee, well, it is in reality. If you get up to the 40,000 foot view of this, a lot of states are losing population because of the cost of housing. And where is it going?
Going down
We know
south,
where it's
yeah.
going. The impact politically, you know, socially is really important, because if we don't have housing that is affordable, livable for young people and even middle-aged people, they leave.
Yeah.
And who do we want to attract? So these issues are really profound, and we can look at Montgomery County with, what are we, 870?
800, yeah, close to that, 865.
Whatever, but we sit in this, you know, megalopolis, and people are moving other places because living here has become challenging.
Yeah.
So, not that we can solve it at Montgomery County Planning Commission, but I think we should be aware.
We can at least, get into more of the data to help understand it more. And yeah, and most of those, the overwhelming majority of those bottom 50 markets were in northern markets, you know.
And we're getting, when you look at the demographics, how old we're getting. You know, we're just getting, I couldn't believe that we were 3 years older in the last 10 years, is that?
Oh, it was
41?
two,
Yeah.
You're all
Yeah.
41.
yeah, 41 currently. That's part of my next
Okay,
presentation.
that is not young.
Yeah.
I feel 10 years younger.
You don't look at data over 45. That's legal.
You can't rely on people like me. I did a reverse migration. I moved from Georgia back up here, which is, you don't.
Well, that's
do
for-
this.
that's for-
That's-
right, you're on
That's an
track.
exception, yeah, to the rule. And then I'm just gonna go right into our next report, which is a little bit more, you know, a little different in
This is
tone.
really interesting.
Yeah, it's fascinating research and read and outcomes. So this is our,
I had it printed out so I could kind of yellow highlight it because it's really interesting.
so we have, our major report update is called Who Are Our Neighbors? A Demographic Profile of the Occupants of Montgomery County Housing Development. And it is an update to the 2012 report that we did, the characteristics of the population in new and existing housing units. And the primary goal of these reports were to determine average household size, students per household, and then an age breakdown of housing, new and existing attached, detached, and multifamily housing. So basically it gives us a full kind of broad view of, but also a very specific view of who lives in the housing throughout the county. And it has provided data for our what we call demographic multipliers, which have been critical in our school enrollment projections and comprehensive plans. So it's been a fascinating read and sort of concept. Just real quick, the methodology, we use a different methodology than the last edition of the report. It's kind of been one that's, I don't want to say pioneered, but it's been used by other states, New Jersey, Delaware, throughout the Mid-Atlantic, using what's called public use microdata samples, which is essentially a piece of the American Community Survey. It's not tabulated data that you'll see in the census, public, the surveys that are available for the public to use, just that are already formulated and curated. This is basically like a library of other data that that users are free to cross-reference and kind of customize and get some really interesting metrics. So we used age cohort, household size, students enrolled in public schools. We were focusing on public schools students for developments, housing type by number of units, single family attached, detached, and multifamily, and then the year built to determine to get our new and existing housing numbers. And then the PUMS data is divided up into different regions on this map here. So obviously to get a county total, you would add up all the measurements you got from each of these regions. For our community planners and for just the municipalities in general, this is valuable because you can actually drill down, not right to your municipality, but you can at least get a regional specific number for household size or public schools enrolled students that are a little more specific than just the county level. So this map's in the report and it'll be available to our planners as well. And it's just a basic snapshot of the reports or the report findings here. So starting off with children enrolled in public school, not surprisingly, new single family detached units are producing the highest number of students per household. So 100 new detached homes, for instance, are going to produce, by our numbers, about 61 public school students. There's been some changes over the years, single family attached existing homes are kind of catching up to existing detached. And your existing homes are generally going to have a little bit less variation that we found. Could also be, people who are just, for whatever reason, moving, reflecting the increased demand for attached housing possibly. So that could explain the fact that attached is higher than detached. And then multifamily, of course, as typically is the case, produces the fewest students per unit. Age makeup, as you said, Dulcie, yes, we are getting older. Our median age is 41, which is up a few years from the last decade. And you can see this It's not on this slide because I thought it would be a little bit too much data to show all at once, but, 17% of, the folks living in existing housing are 65 and over, 11% of that same group are living in new housing. For both new and existing though, 65 and up makes up nearly a quarter of the people living in those, and that's reflected in seniors downsizing, can also be a reflection of the rise we've seen in age-restricted housing, which the census does generally include in multifamily housing. Or just, for whatever reason, seniors are maybe aging in place on restricted income, a lot of different reasons, but that's the metric we found. And then household size, again, not surprisingly, the single family detached is containing the largest household size, especially new detached units. These houses have, young families with young children. But attached isn't too far behind. The single family detached homes have, as you'll see in the chart as well, it's a little bit more in depth, could include householders who have raised children, and then have since moved out of the house, but they remain in the existing house. So, empty nesters are certainly a factor in there. Attached units and multifamily, they generally going to have a higher share. Not a crazy higher share, but the larger share of single householders and then single parent households. Multifamily in particular has about new and existing has over 50% are comprised of single householders. And so they're also producing generally the fewest students, and obviously because of that, they're generally the smallest household numbers. So what's the value of this data? Well, it essentially allows us to quantify the impact to the best of our ability, of development projects. So like I said, it's crucial for our school enrollment projections, and it does provide more of a deep dive, or sort of almost a little more of a magnifying glass in terms of analyzing population and household projections, and then helps us kind of further determine, okay, are we building enough units per year based on what we think these numbers are, and are we creating the right mix of housing? So when we look at, tying back to the previous report, DVRPC says we're getting 109,000 more people. We don't have to just look at, and I don't remember what the exact projected household size is that they stated, but we can actually break that down and do our own more specific calculations to determine if we're on the right track in terms of housing supply and just who's going to be living there within those. So it's very valuable across different missions. And that's it. Any questions, comments? I know there's a lot of data and narratives.
Questions for Dave?
How do you judge the need for housing on this? I mean, families that need different housing than they have already, or when you're saying, what do we need to build? I mean.
Well, it allows us to look at some, we can take this and look at what kind of previous specific trends have been, and then.
I mean, everything is more expensive all the time.
Sure.
And people's, and it's costing people more and more of their income to buy houses. But what is it that people want that we're not giving them, or we need and we're not giving them? How do you determine that?
Well, that's still ongoing, but it gives us a little bit of a clear picture of what has been happening, and then what,
Okay, if there's not an answer, that's fine, but I mean, that's what I'm questioning. Are we a deficiency of how many units for people who need X, Y, or Z? Do we know that? Is there any way to gauge that? Maybe there isn't.
I have been doing some preliminary calculations on what our future housing demand would be. How many units do we need for the Montgomery 2050 plans? How many units are we gonna need in the future to house the population we anticipate having? having, but I think what David was trying to say in the presentation is that if we stick to the trend of what we're building today, approximately 50% of our units each year are multifamily, and the rest is evenly split between detached and attached housing. If that trend holds, not gonna have enough capacity to house those 110,000. Because multifamily units are small. They don't house as many people. So something has to change. I don't know if it means that we need to start building more of the missing middle housing types that we occasionally talk about, not a 10-story apartment building, but maybe a garden apartment complex that has 3-bedroom units.
And what is the zoning that we need to be able to do that? I'm not asking you the
Right,
question.
right,
Not asking
zoning
you
or they're just different
Right.
design templates that need to be explored that have to fit back into the landscape of housing here in town. I think Steve's gonna go home and fix it. When you're done going to the farmer's market with wife
And selling.
And getting hay.
And selling fire.
and selling firewood,
Building
you're gonna whip up
grandfather.
some new amazing design.
Well, that's
for
gonna make him very
larger
rich if he figures
housing
this out.
units that are more densely concentrated.
Out of firewood.
Yes.
Fireplaces and all.
Any other questions, Dave?
You don't have to build them.
Thanks, Dave, appreciate it. All right, Mike, take us to Pottstown.
Okay,
How you doing, Mike?
good. How are you guys doing? Good morning.
We're doing better if Dave can
Okay.
figure out the housing.
Okay. Okay, good.
Next month.
Good morning. I'm Mike Narcowich, and I'm gonna share with you an update on Pottstown Borough Community Planning Assistance Contract, which was.
Is that your flag?
It is, yes. And at first I thought I had pulled up the Cuba flag.
Yeah,
but
it does.
It's slightly different.
I always think of. Don't have the triangle piece.
Correct, yeah. So this is for years 2025 to 2027. And I'm sure you know that Pottstown is located in the western corner of the county, and it comprises the regional core of the Pottstown Metropolitan Regional Future Land Use Area in the most recent regional comprehensive plan. Some of our previous contract work included zoning ordinance amendments for a variety of topics. Several of these were nuisance or complaint driven. Some were just things that the borough identified that we need to create definitions and more use regulations to better regulate. And we worked on a variety of topics on everything from sober living homes to hookah bars, to neighborhood convenience stores, and some of these were adopted. And we also worked on some design standards and regulations for window signs to try to create more appealing look in the downtown area. So we had our design section do some renderings and some exercises to demonstrate what the, at the time, draft regulations would look like. So in the upper right, I don't know about you, but I have a hard time recognizing that that's actually a visualization. It's not actually stenciled on the window. They did a great job.
I love the bottom.
You like, yes, those are actual signs that.
I love the sign of the
wearing. So that amendment was also adopted. Previous contract work also included a lot of consultation and involvement in ongoing planning initiatives. Some of the auspices of DDRPC, like the High Street Corridor Study, Safe Routes to School Study, which was for not just Pottstown, but some of the communities around it as well. Enhancing park bus stops. The station area and access study, which is related to the extension of passenger rail to Pottstown, and meetings with the Schuylkill River Passenger Rail Authority. And also meetings and work related to the Thriving Communities Program. The borough got a grant from USDOT. The consultant that leads the meetings is called RAIB. And we worked on putting some grants together for the extension of Keystone Boulevard. High Street. We also worked with the Keystone Employment and Economic Plan Steering Committee. There was an early proposal, concept for an outdoor entertainment venue on Keystone Boulevard, located right next to Route 100. Unfortunately, that did not continue, that they were unable to get financing. Gonna try not to get dizzy looking at this picture here. So we did draft amendments to the key plan and to the memorandum of understanding that West Pottsgrove and Pottstown Borough completed for that plan. Significant land development reviews. I picked out a few here that I thought you might be interested in. One is Beacon of Hope Homeless Shelter on West High Street. Another mixed-use redevelopment on East High Street called High Street Commons in the old Lastic Furniture buildings. North Hanover Street redevelopment, mixed use, and a multiple story self-storage building on Shoemaker Road, and an industrial use expansion on Queen Street.
Is the North Hanover Street one, the old Mercury building?
No.
So
Yeah,
that
that's-
would be additional. That's
Yeah.
another one that's been talked
Yeah, that's
about
been in the
lately.
news, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, and have not reviewed that yet.
Mhm.
So in more detail, this is Beacon of Hope. This is the homeless shelter. We had substantial review of this with many people participating here at MCPC because it's a big deal. Of course, we invited Kaylee Silver from Housing and Community Development, so she participated as well. And so we did have numerous comments about that. Some of them related to the window area. They only proposed a very small window area. So we pointed out that that does not comply with zoning, but also got into just the holistic reasons that you might want to have larger window areas, especially in a place where people are in recovery. It promotes a lot of healing and just general wellness. And so I got a couple of great resources that Bill and Marley found, was able to include some of that in the review letter. But there are also comments related to needing more landscaping in the parking lot. Zoning actually requires parking to be located behind the building. So we made recommendations about that. Turns out the applicant is going to come back and pursue a variance for that. But we did make other recommendations to minimize the view of parking and reduce impervious area. The zoning does allow us a small percentage of spaces to be reduced to a sort of a compact size. So we made that recommendation. The applicant took us up on it and they were able to relocate some of the spaces that they had originally proposed for the front of the building.
Is that much parking needed for this type of facility? Zoning aside.
You're right, yeah, and they say it is. So they felt that they could not get by with any less than that number of spaces.
Sometimes the people that move into these are living in a car now.
Right.
Have a car.
Yeah, and I will always defer to, the user, they know their model best, but it's always a good question to ask.
Yeah, absolutely.
The window issue, is that a programming issue from the homeless shelter?
Well,
Smaller windows for security reasons or something?
So not that I'm aware of. I think the way they explained it is that they had proposed no windows in the sleeping rooms. And they have a very rigid schedule so that people were only going to be in those rooms when they're sleeping. And then they get up, they leave. There's windows in the other parts of the building, but very minimal size in most areas, including on the front facades. So yes. Possible.
Yeah, that sounds like a fire code issue.
Yeah.
Being able to escape.
So we definitely, we're definitely going to push them on that, and they definitely need to respond because it is a zoning issue. In addition to all the justifiable reason for warning larger window area. The area to the rear, just a concrete area, and so we made recommendations related to providing amenities or programming to make that a usable space for occupants, residents, as well as employees. Turns out they did have some ideas for that. They just simply didn't show it on the plan, but they did have some real ideas for activities. And activities that are beneficial to the residents' health. Okay, I'm gonna move on to this warehouse. There's an industrial use expansion on North Hanover, and this is a pretty large site and includes two major buildings. There's some smaller buildings, one or two smaller buildings, 1 story, that are going to be demolished, sort of abandoned warehouses. The building here is going to be reused for a small amount of retail space, about, 576 square feet. And then they're going to develop 85 one-bedroom apartments in the large buildings. There's going to be parking on the ground floor of the large building on the far right. There's going to be a small foyer constructed between the two large buildings. So we had comments for this related to adding amenities to a proposed pocket park, adding parking lot landscaping, adding the required open space trees, and addressing lighting, because the lighting they were proposing was excessive and exceeded the limits in zoning in some areas.
Why only 1 bedroom?
That's what the market is.
The market is
indicating for them, yeah.
They're small units.
Yeah.
No, that's the retail space.
It's commercial.
Yeah.
Sorry. Also.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, but it is interesting, because as we plan for the extension of passenger rail to
I
Pottstown,
would think you might need a second. Some families or some people might want a second bedroom for some other reason.
right?
And so, because I don't know what the price point for these units is.
Well, it's an existing building.
It is.
Yeah.
So they're gonna be working on
Yeah,
those
yeah,
light out the building.
No, but still, 85 one bedroom is very specific clientele.
They renovated the building in Jenkintown. It was an office building, so 1 bedrooms and studios only.
Okay.
And they're all, I think they're all rented now.
No, okay.
So.
Yeah, I mean, that I have been seeing a heck of a lot of 1 bedrooms and studios being
Even the
proposed.
mixed buildings, they're very heavily 1 bedroom. What's being
Yeah,
constructed.
we usually see like a 60-70%
Yeah.
split. You know, 2 1 bedrooms to 2 bedrooms.
That's okay,
Okay.
as a couple.
And a lot of 2 bedrooms are rented by couples or people that only use 1 bedroom, they use the bedroom.
Also, or office, that's what I'm thinking, you know, kind of flex space, whatever.
Yeah.
I guess.
Sure. Makes sense. So this is also interesting because it could be considered a TOD project. The passenger rail station will be down Hanover Street. It will be less than half-mile walk. Not to mention that you have part bus service. So that's something to keep in mind as we plan for the extension of passenger rail.
Well, it's not going anywhere.
So this is the industrial expansion. It's a small project, but I wanted to bring it up because I think it's always interesting when industrial does expand in our older boroughs. So this is Precision Polymer Products. And they manufacture elastomeric products, so flexible products like gaskets and valves, which have applications in a variety of industries. So it's a 14,700 square foot expansion on Queen Street. And our review comments address things such as suggesting that open space adjacent be utilized for amenity areas for the employees. We had some recommendations that help this blend in better with the surrounding residences because it is on a street with residences, such as by increasing the window area. It does require a buffer, so we brought that up because they had not proposed one. We had some comments about the sidewalk and ensuring ADA access and recommendations to have tree pits, which ensure that the trees are going to survive. And we made some recommendations with bioinfiltration in the parking areas. So here is mixed-use project on East High Street. And this is really interesting. This goes into the old Lastic Furniture Building. They actually have two buildings on either side of Charlotte, Route PA 663.
They've torn down a lot of the old facade elements that were added.
Yeah, this one right here.
Getting it back to the.
Getting it back to the bones.
Yeah, so they've uncovered the old windows, which is great. So they're restoring that historic facade. So this would be the way that it would look when it's done. So that's on the right. So this building here is also Elastic showroom. At one time it was Penny's, one time it was a Woolworth. So Artillery Brewing is going into the ground floor. They had originally proposed 11 residential units. They pulled back on that. And from what I've read, and I don't have confirmation about this, but I was able to read a little bit about this, and evidently they had some problems with the parking they had proposed underneath the building. Just providing adequate area, I believe, was the issue. So our review comments for this, some of the issues related to the fact that although it's on High Street in the main commercial area, it is a residential neighborhood to the rear. So we want to make sure that it blends, it's compatible with the residential area, and that they comply with zoning when it comes to how you treat your dumpster and locate your dumpster and things like that. And also, again, with window area. On the side, they were not complying with the required minimum window area for this building right here. And that is Rockwell Development. Just doing that. So upcoming contract work includes working with the design section on placemaking concept improvements for downtown, preparing design guidelines for the Central Business District and the Gateway South Zoning District, continuing work with the Ordinance Review Committee, and continuing participation with ongoing initiatives like Schuylkill River Passenger Rail, Thriving Communities, the station area and access study being led by DVRPC. And I think some of our work will be related to a business improvement district that's proposed. They proposed one last year for a much wider area, including a greater area than you see shown here in orange, as well as a separate area out by the airport. That was not approved. They could not get enough support to get that passed. But they're trying again with scaled down version this year, which would be on High, King, Charlotte, and Hanover Streets between Manatawny and Warren Street. Any questions?
Well, for decades, I've been calling Pottstown the poster child for possibilities. Okay? Well, what do you think? Do we have momentum yet?
I really think we're getting there. Yeah, I mean, some of the businesses coming in on High Street in Hanover are making me think that people are getting excited. We'll see. I mean, if some of these residential projects go through from start to finish and they get built and they restore historic facades, then that's going to be really promising as well. And then there's Keystone Boulevard. One thing that I didn't mention, because it didn't come up as planning work in the last contract, but the Pottstown Sustainable Energy Park, now known as Restream, is the large or the significant proposed green recycling plant for Keystone Boulevard. They've received RCAP funding. They would contribute they're contributing hundreds of thousands of dollars to the extension of the boulevard. And that could really help kickstart redevelopment of that area and connection to the roadway.
The work being done on 422, I remember a long time ago seeing plans for rerouting that was going to change a lot of stuff up there. Where do we stand with that?
Well, the 422 Grostown interchange was redone. And so they smoothed out the curve to reduce.
Well, that's.
Yes,
but
right.
I know there was an issue of some green space along the river, how we were going to access it, what was going to happen there.
Yeah, that's something that I I'm interested I'm hoping that more will happen. At one time, I know Mike had been working on that, years ago and created a presentation called Stowe Landing. And it was related to the, mitigation of wetlands for that 422, Stowe interchange project. And so they have done a little bit of work. I guess when they redid that interchange, they left a stub road, so you can cross the interchange, as I understand it, to the south side of 422 near the river and go down a short dead end road and get access to the river. But that's the extent of the improvements as far as I know.
In a long time, but I knew that there was, you know, a lot of churn up there and how we would use it, how we get public benefit, but also the economic development that they need.
Yeah, and Beth Pilling was really interested in that area as well, to make it like a natural bird watching area. And putting in boardwalks and things of that nature. But yeah.
High Street, the High Street Bridge, I mentioned that there was a groundbreaking.
Yes,
on Monday.
right. Yeah, just last week, I guess it was.
It was Monday.
Monday, okay, yes.
Yeah, and then there's, you know, just this also goes in the public contracts back, so that we didn't have a reason to talk about it today, but we did a study for High Street that industrial area share.
Right.
So again, that's kind of been sitting on the shelf, but as, you know, it's the Norfolk Southern line, so as the SRPRA might be going through there and the High Street Bridge gets built in the next 3 years, that could be a real boom for that area of Pottstown.
And I think the bridge, latest I heard was that it should be done in 2 years, right?
So the commissioners
right?
are trying to push that it gets done faster.
3? Okay.
They compared it to the market proposal being done.
It's an auction.
Okay, how can't we do Time Street less than that? But anyway, just.
Yeah.
They said it's supposed to be free, but they would like to get it done fast.
That'd be nice.
Yeah.
Bridges don't work that way, especially a bridge of that magnitude.
Right, the Kime Street Gateway Plan, yeah, that's a great plan. And it's on the borough website, it's on the county website. And I took a look at that for how the industrial expansion is located in relation to that. It's about 2 to 3 blocks away. So it's not directly in the gateway area, but yeah, it's part of that wider area.
The North Hanover Street, the bike lanes that are being added, I've seen that in the news lately.
The PennDOT
That
resource.
goes to, it's few blocks, I can't remember how many blocks, will that go as far as that apartment complexes? It would be in the business improvement district, I think for sure, I just don't know how many blocks north of High Street it goes.
I just read about that, so I'm not sure. Yeah, I mean, this one,
Yeah, so similar to what they did on sections of High Street and a couple other roadways, they're going to, you know, re-stripe out sections of North Hanover Street close to High Street to provide those dedicated bike lanes to make the street feel narrower, and right now it's kind of a open sea of asphalt with parking, but they have space to designate bike lanes.
yeah, that'd be really interesting if they build the apartments and then people can bike down to the passenger rail station, you know, leave their bikes there.
Yeah, I think it's a good spot, especially when you look at some of the developments, you know, the Mercury Building would be in
Right.
there as well.
Yeah.
That's a push forward. It is.
It is, yeah, Pottstown's got a great tree canopy, as I'm sure you know, so. It'd be a nice bike ride.
Any other questions for Mike? Thanks, Mike.
Sure.
Mike.
Thank you. Good job, Mike.
All right, Patty.
Oh, always a joy to do cleanup after we run long here, so.
Well, you spoke for Michael's and you took up the time.
Oh, there you go, there goes my few minutes, I know.
The only thing I think that will keep you in your seats is about the Montgomery Awards, so hopefully it's you know, it's the new year, spring's in the year, and it's Montgomery Awards season, so I want to just do a kickoff. Especially for maybe the new members who might not know about the award program as much, let you know, just this is this time to start thinking about projects. And so as Rob's bringing that up, I'll just,
Yeah, it's on there.
it
It's on there.
says, Munco Awards, second one. Thank you. Thanks, yeah. And remember, it's, we recognize the best in planning design, environmental sustainability and advocacy. It promotes awareness of our outstanding design and innovative planning in our communities, and with successful land developments, revitalization efforts, open space enhancements, environmental sustainability and transportation projects, as well as community impact projects. So there we go. Oh, And as you, just as a reminder, it kind of falls in several, a couple different categories. We have land development, we have revitalization, open space. We always are looking for new transportation projects to award. A more recent one was community impact, but we have one couple from the last couple of years, and environmental, which is different than the environmental stewardship award. We still like to recognize projects that still take environmental sustainability into effect, even if it doesn't meet the criteria of the environmental stewardship award that the Conservation District awards. So just as a reminder, this is land development. These projects promote excellence. They include residential, office, commercial, institutional. They exemplify good site design, building placement, context, parking and circulation, pedestrian amenities, landscaping, and other sustainable design practices. And we all are probably familiar with Sora West and Conshohocken. Again, a great project that right corner of Fayette and Elm Streets took what was pretty much a, almost a brownfield site there. I did go through the redevelopment authority as part of the process. And one of the best things, other than having a world headquarters of Syncora there, is this great public space that was created right along the street. Another example is a different scale, of course, in Collegeville Borough, which was the Shell Hayes Commons. This is where they took an existing historic structure, added very contemporary addition, and created a space that was for cars and pedestrian, a verna, so to speak, where they can have college gatherings or they can have parking if you're going to the building. And again, it's an example of a great land development. When we talk about revitalization, again, this is Penpoint Landing. This is one in 2022 between the highway and the bluffs along the Schuylkill River. It was an old industrial site, as you can see, which they left a lot of the elements there, again, adding to the charm of the place. And then there's the river walk there, and you can get meals or a sandwich along there. You can ride your bike along there. You can connect to the trail system across the bridge there on the river. And then another revitalization project, which was just from last year, Souders Station Square. And the borough led this development of these three historic railway buildings in their railway station, which is no longer used for passenger rail. Still has some freight rail going through there. But again, this is a restaurant. There's also a brewery and a nail salon. We haven't really recognized something almost for pretty much predominantly open space recently, but this still is a great example. Stoneleigh in Lower Merion 2019 award. This is where this focuses on open space preservation, land conservation, on community amenities, and they sustain the natural environment. This is a great project. Natural Lands it is the caretaker of this place, and is still a really great example of an open space development that should be recognized. Transportation, we just talked about Pottstown, and they've added to that network, but they won an award in 2019 for what they called Walk Bike Pottstown. Again, creating bike lanes and sidewalks, trying to get connectivity throughout the borough, and especially connecting a lot of students to walking to school. So this has been a really great project, and they're still building on it. And it's time to pick Pottstown, I think. So anyway. Community impacts. This is one of the newer subjects. Not that we haven't done it, and it's one where we recognize it more, because we certainly have had projects that have really emphasized community impact. But we have kind of made sure is something in the forefront of our mind as we're looking at projects. This is from 2022, the Willows at East Greenville. There was a lot of things this did. It was historic preservation, it's affordable housing, and it was taking this old casket factory and making it into, let me see, it's 71 new units that run the whole gamut between affordable and market rate. Just as a bit of a call out on this project, it just was the focus of an article in Planning Magazine. So it has gotten national recognition at this point. The article's online at this point, and I can forward you that link when I get back to my desk. We're waiting to see if it ends up in the print copy as well. I'm hoping it will. Montgomery County is recognized as being critical in the process of planning this project. So it's really been that's kind of a nice feather in our cap right now. But also community impact, this is from last year, Martha's Community Farm. Again, this is not only, when we think about land development, this is still developing the land. It's still a land use and it's still something that's important. And so this is not only a community garden, but it's also a food forest riparian buffer. Again, what we try to recognize is what nonprofits, public and private sectors as well, and other members of the community trying to do something and doing something meaningful in Montgomery County. This is the environment. This was Willows at Grove at Meadowwood, won in 2022 as well. And we've been there the last 2 years for our awards program. They are great hosts. One of the many reasons they won, it wasn't just this, but was the environmental element of what they did. That pond that was created with those zones that are meant to be part of a pond. Wasn't just haphazardly designed. It was designed to really function well as a pond that has all the different zones a pond should have. So anyway, and Meadowwood has done many other things. You can see on that bigger picture. They have a community garden in the front, but in the back, what you might see of those white little flicks are a riparian buffer, and they planted again along the creek there as part of their commitment to environmental sustainability. So again, when we think about the Montgomery Award, we as a team look at design, we look at process, and we look at the impact. Again, I'm not going to read these, but again, those are the 3 things we think about. You know, is it a good design? What is the impact in the community? And what has been the process? Has it been something that's been collaborative that has many partners involved? Now, the other things we're going to be looking at is the new Charles J. Tornado Planning Advocate Award. Again, it's about an engaged citizen, appointed elected official or board, a community that has made significant contributions to promoting planning in Montgomery County. These are some of the past winners. I believe it started in 2014. I don't have that person up here, but anyway, these are some of the past winners. Sometimes it's an organization like in the lower left hand. Sometimes it's a person like Tom Hilton from Pottstown. And then of course, last year it was Al's own kind of bigger than life guy, but he got the first Charles J. Tornado Award and was very pleased to be the first recipient of that, as was Charlie's family to have given it to him. So. And then the Environmental Stewardship Award. Again, this is awarded by the Conservation District. It has to be a project that improves soil and water quality. This is a particularly great project in Lower Suffolk Township, the Jacob Rife Park Stream and Floodplain Restoration. So again, it's not something that this group, although if you know of a great project, please recommend it, because we've had in the past where Jessica Buck has reached out and said, I don't have any really good applicants. Do you know of anything? So if you have an idea, have a project in mind, please let us know. So next steps, it's time to beat the bushes for nominations. I will say the call for entries is not just out yet. And that's the reason for that question mark at the bottom there. So we have decided that 2025 is the year to maybe give the Montgomery Awards a slightly new look, kind of freshen it up a little bit. It's still kind of being cooked by our design group, but I'm sure you're going to love it. But that's what I wanted to mention here. That's why you saw some gray slides here, is that it was just time for the Montgomery Awards to maybe have a slightly updated look for 2025. So, any questions?
That's nice. Good, Pattie.
Okay, thank you.
Look forward to the tour.
Yes, I know. The tour's always fun. Well, yeah, we always do. And we always have great lunch, you know, that's always important. So thank you.
Now we'll do the director report.
Yes. We'll start with staff news. I think I mentioned last month, but Drew Shaw is still retiring. I could not convince him otherwise. His last day will be April 18th. Please mark your calendars if you'd like to join us. While the arrangements are slightly still tentative, but we're locking them down very soon. We'll let you know. But we're planning to have a send-off happy hour soiree, likely at Von C's here in Norristown. And of course, you'll all be invited if you'd like to come to that.
What's the date?
April 18th, Friday.
Oh, it will be that Friday.
Good Friday. It's hard to find dates.
Good Friday for all you heathens.
Exactly. And also, I did mention last time, although it was just found out at the time, but I wanted to let it marinate a little. But Anne Marie Meehan is also retiring on June 6th at the front desk. You've seen Anne Marie, and we're definitely going to miss her as well. And more on that later. In the absence of Mr. Edmond, we're happy to announce the promotion of Matt Popek as the Transportation Section Manager, which was approved last week at the Board of Commissioners Salary Board. So we are in the Popek era, we'll call it. He will bring all the skill and dedication that he's brought the last 10 years, how long? Almost 10. And look forward to continuing working with Matt. We do have 2 openings on our staff. They're both at the more entry-level level. Trails and open space planner and transportation planner to help Matt rebuild that section as well. County has a opening for Chief Sustainability Officer, a position we've long sought and is finally posted. I'm on the team looking at those applications right now at over 50, and I'll just say it's a pretty strong pool. I think we'll get a great candidate out of that. That will be working itself through the system. And we'll be working with that person, obviously, with all of our sustainability focus efforts and overlap with environmental planning will be important. County commissioners, just wanted to mention, they held their State of the County address at the community college back on February 18th. Shout out to Sandra, who I saw there. Thanks for coming for that. Anyway, it was a high profile event where they wanted to, announce their, both accomplishments and priority items for the coming year. And we certainly heard a good bit of our work program in those announcements, especially from Chair Commissioner Makija, who's excited about some of the capital projects as well as the trails and addressing affordable housing more substantial manner going forward. So anyway, that was a good event. We, as I think I mentioned last time, and have a larger seat at the table with the Commissioner's Chair and the priorities meetings on a weekly basis, and certainly all the staff that has been built up over the last year in that office in the hopes of providing more efficient services. On that note, it was announced at the Board of Commissioners that a new office is being created, although it's being transformed from an existing office. The recovery office, which was installed and built up to administer the ARPA funds, among other things, is being transitioned into the new Office of Innovation, Strategy, and Performance. I have to read those 3 acronyms.
You need an acronym.
Oh, no.
The acronym doesn't quite work.
It doesn't work. It's a mouthful.
No comment there, but no, they made a big deal about it. It's intended to, look at both the internal provision of services, certainly departments will get a look over, but also looking at how they can be improved, how can both budgetary items assist departments in better achieving their goals and mission, and how we can, work more together across departments. So I think that's, genuinely the intent. And we'll be working with them over the next year to represent the Planning Commission. I think again, I hope that we're an example of doing a lot of things efficiently, and in other departments, might not have received the attention or have a board to help advance them. So I think all in all, it's a good thing. And things that we've had on the table, I thought about, might actually have some legs or motion to implement from an organizational standpoint. That's my very positive outlook. And let's see what's next here. Monco 2040 grant program applications closed on March 1st. We received 31 applications with 6.2 million, which was just updated by Chloe.
Is it growing?
It grew. I don't see how it can't grow anymore, right?
Nope.
I hope not.
And it needs to shrink.
Yes. So despite getting more money, it's like building an extra lane on the highway. It's still congested.
It's gone day one.
Yep. It was fun while it lasted. Still see John, Sandra, and Obed, you'll enjoy with staff the exercise of trying to find where that money is going to be allocated.
It's a big lift to read them all too.
Yeah.
It's a big lift.
When's the first meeting for that?
I believe it was just put on for April 29th or 8th. Yeah.
No, not April.
March 27th.
27.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is it, March 27th?
Morning.
Chloe, here in the evening.
March 27th, 9 AM.
Yeah, 9 a.m., 9 to 12.
Yeah, but she walked out of the room.
We scared her.
She said she had enough of
But she
you.
doesn't trust anything's right,
Her own
so.
car was about.
She's being efficient, yeah. Yes, so anyway, more on that for those, especially for those who will be involved on that committee. I was thinking a quick update on federal funding. We're not. What's that? We don't have any we have one project that is literally on pause because we don't know when it can be resumed. It's the Safe Streets for All grant, $400,000. So which we just got at the end of the year. So hopefully that will be lifted. It's under review, but a number of counties are kind of standing still on waiting to get the green light on moving that forward. Other projects, our major transportation projects on the tip, most of that is not really threatened to our understanding. There may be further delays built into it with US DOT review, being necessary from the result of some of these executive orders, but right now, there's not a sense of panic on existing projects. The trail projects the new trail projects announced with the new tip, which we're relying heavily on the new carbon funding program out of the bipartisan infrastructure law, as well as CMAQ, congestion mitigation. That one has also not received a direct threat, but we are keeping an eye out, concerned, because that's a substantial source of funding to advance the cross-county trail. The $40 million total of federal funds will be needed over the next 10 years. So we're monitoring that. EV projects, while we don't have funding dedicated from a federal source at this moment, that is one of the big threats. Obviously, the administration has announced its intentions or unintentions of supporting that movement. And the state's trying to, navigate funding that it was getting federally into the NEVI program, and all of that is very much up in the air. I'll drop from that. And if you have any other direct questions, or feel free to address or email me. Next month, just a heads up, at this time for our April board meeting, you're on the agenda, you should see a presentation on the White Marsh floodplain restoration project, which we're very excited and we're working on. I'll have the consultant here for that. And then coincidentally, the check presentation event with the county commissioners and Representative Hughes, I believe, will be at the site for what just got moved from 12:30 to 1 o'clock. So I was worried about wrapping our meeting up in time, but it looks like we'll have plenty of time. And we'll certainly invite, if anyone would like to come out to us for that ceremony. It'll be 1 o'clock in White Marsh. The site, if you're not familiar with it, is at Skipback and Bethlehem Pike intersection, right across from McGurk's, if you're familiar with the area. It's about 11 acre county site that was decimated from Hurricane Ida, and then contractor further decimated it. And it's going to be rebuilt in a very exciting, environmentally progressive project, demo project really, to restore the floodplain and create new environmental vegetation.
And actually, we'll have a presentation that day from the consultants. Yes.
Yep. So just a heads up, if you're interested in elongating your day next month at this time, that opportunity is there. That is, I think, where I'm okay leaving it. You have the events list and some good stuff coming up this month.
Thank you.
Any other party comments from anybody? Motion, we're adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.